Well, obviously, we've been through a pandemic, the COVID pandemic, but I think there's one that's deeper, that's even more important, one that we should really be giving our attention to, and it's the pandemic of being right.
This is Chocolate and Coffee Break, a compassionate proposition, a space to share stories, bridge divides, and spark meaningful connections. So grab your chocolate, pour your cuppa, and let's break down barriers, one conversation at a time. And now, here's your host, Andrea Putting.
Welcome to this episode of Chocolate and Coffee Break. I hope that you have your chocolate and a cuppa and are ready to listen to another wonderful episode of Chocolate and Coffee Break. So today's guest is someone who holds a very special place in my journey as one of my teachers and mentors. He walks the path of the mystic and the messenger. James Twyman is a New York Times best-selling author, musician, and spiritual teacher, often called the Peace Troubadour for his powerful missions around the world, bringing messages of peace to conflict zones through music and prayer. His latest book, I Don't Know, Maybe, I Love You, invites us into the kind of conversations we hold dear here, unfiltered, heart-opening, and steeped in vulnerability. Just like a chocolate and coffee break, it asks us to slow down, sit with the unknown, and discover the magic that happens when we lead with compassion. This is more than a conversation, it's an invitation. So let's get started. Welcome, James. It's so exciting to have you here with me today.
Oh, it's so excited to be here with you as well, Andrea. I was looking forward to this for a while now.
So I love to start a chocolate and coffee break with a conversation starter. So I've grabbed my little conversation starter cards, and I found a good question came up for me. What is something that happened that changed the way you see the world?
Oh, boy, there's so many,
Yeah.
but there is one that comes to mind immediately, and it is basically the subject of our chat here today. And it was a conversation that I had with my younger brother. I think it was right around the beginning of COVID. And my brother lives in Nashville. I am right now in Portland, Oregon, and he loves to challenge me. He has a lot of different ideas, and we were arguing about something. I can't even remember what it was. And it seemed that he was winning. He's better informed than I am. And so I finally said to him three things that changed my life, and I think might very well change the world. I said to him, I don't know, Kenny. Number two, maybe. And finally, I love you. And the argument just ended right there immediately. He would say later, I hate when you say that because how can I keep the argument going when you say that? And it's true. When there's no competition, when we're not butting up against each other and we allow ourselves to flow and listen and be guided, something magical happens. And that ultimately led to me writing the book, I Don't Know, Maybe, I Love You, which you mentioned at the beginning of the show. And so I'm out talking about this everywhere because I think it's so important, especially today. The subtitle of the book is How to Depolarize Your Family, Business, Country, and the World. So I would say that was one little conversation that changed my life. And I think those three things could very well change the world.
I believe so too, because they're very much in alignment with chocolate and coffee breaks. We invite someone to have a chocolate and coffee break so that we can listen to their perspective and learn about them and what is it that touches their heart. And I know that's something we're going to talk about. So in your book, you say there's a pandemic. I'd love you to tell us about the pandemic that you see
Yeah.
in front of us today.
Well, obviously, we've been through a pandemic, the COVID pandemic, but I think there's one that's deeper, that's even more important, one that we should really be giving our attention to, and it's the pandemic of being right. I think this is what is challenging us the most, in many cases, ripping families apart, friends, people who really care for each other. But when we assert our rightness above everything else, we say that if you agree with me, you're okay. But if you don't agree with me, you can't be in my life. That's the pandemic of being right. And I think it's the core of all of the issues that we have today, the polarization. I don't know what things are like in Australia or other places in the world, but I'm guessing that it's not too far away from what we're experiencing here in the US. Unprecedented polarization. And the question is, what will bring us back together? So when I had that conversation with my younger brother, it really taught me something. The first thing that it taught me was I don't know. That's why it's the first part of this little equation. I have my opinion, you have your opinion, but none of us know for sure what we need or what's happening. So maybe that's the second part. If I listen to you and consider the possibility that I could learn something from your perspective, maybe something else, something magical can happen. But finally, the foundation of it all has to be, I love you. So that's why, at first I wasn't even going to write this book. I would talk about it in many of my lectures and presentations. And every time I did, people would leave inspired by it. And I could see them days later and they would be throwing that out there. I don't know, maybe I love you. And I thought, this is something. And finally, about, less than a year ago, I guess it was in September of last year, I was doing a tour, a concert tour of the East Coast of the US. And I was visiting a dear friend of mine who I didn't even know his wife she owned a publishing company. And I told her, I'm not going to write any more books. At that point, I had written 23 books. I'm not going to write any more books. But if I did, this is the one I would write. And I told her about, I don't know, maybe I love you. And she said, if you write that book, I will publish it because this is so important today. We need this message.
We certainly do. We need to have those times when we can really sit and listen to somebody, because that's the only way that we can do this, depolarize the world. There is research that shows if we sit just for 1 hour and listen to somebody, the terrible intolerances melts away, not just to that person, but to their whole social group. So if you're sitting down and speaking with somebody who is listening to somebody, it's listening to them about what they believe and where they come from, then there's a whole things change in our perspectives in our lives. And I believe it's a real answer for making a difference
It
in the world.
really is. You're spot on, Andrea, because this is a pandemic, the pandemic of being right. Everywhere you look, people are asserting their authority, their rightness. But the truth is, we, in most cases, we believe what we already, well, we hear what we already believe. Like if I'm online, for example, and I already have an opinion, then the algorithms of whatever platform I'm on knows what I believe and it gives me more of that. So it concretizes my position. It makes me believe resolutely that I'm right about this. This is what all the authorities are saying. But the truth is, the authorities are saying what I already believe. And so the beginning in this whole process is to open up, as you said, to consider the possibility that there's more than if I listen to you, even if it seems we disagree. If I listen to you, maybe I'm going to learn something. So what I did after I had that conversation with my friend Anne, who owns the publishing company, I immediately just started talking to people and listening to them as I traveled along the East Coast on my tour. And then I drove all the way back from the East Coast to Portland, Oregon, and I had conversations with people. And some of them were people that agreed with me, and others were not. In fact, there was one person in particular, one of my dearest and oldest friends, who I would say is perhaps the holiest person. and the happiest person I've ever known. And she had a very different perspective on who she thought should win the election. We won't go any further than that, but we had a different opinion. And because I love this person so much, I didn't immediately say, well, you're crazy for even believing that. I listened to her and I let her share what she felt and her perspective. And I'm not going to say that it changed my own, but it softened me considerably. It made me more open to consider the possibility that other people's opinions are valid. And it's not about being right. It's about us being in love. And I think that's the only solution. That's the only way we're going to solve the problems that are facing us today. Up until then, I was living in Mexico. I've been there for about 12 years now. But I decided to come back to Portland, Oregon, because I feel like we need as many people, at least in this country, adding to that container of love and understanding as much as possible, because I think that this openness, everything we're talking about here, this is the only thing that's going to bring us back together.
Certainly is. We're going to take a quick chocolate break because I can't wait to get into my chocolate. But don't skip ahead because these short messages from our sponsors help keep Chocolate and Coffee Break going. By supporting them, you're helping to share more stories that matter. So go ahead, share some chocolate, enjoy a piece of chocolate, and we'll be right back. And you can also subscribe, like, and comment on our pages. Tick the boxes: career, commitments, calendar that's more packed than your pantry, but something's still missing. In Compassionate Purpose, Andrea Putting invites you to stop chasing busy and start living with intention. This book is about real fulfillment through small acts of compassion, purpose-driven service, and meaning that last. No pressure, no perfection, just purpose with heart. Compassionate Purpose, Discovering a Life of Fulfillment. Search for Andrea Putting on Amazon.
How far would you go to keep your loved ones safe when everything else falls apart? In 1945, Ellie and her family risked everything to escape the horrors of war. They fought through frozen landscapes, bombed cities, and an unforgiving world that seemed bent on destroying them. Would you risk your life to keep your family together, even when survival seemed impossible? In the midst of despair, they found the courage to continue. This is their story.
And Silently Falls the Snow, available now on Amazon.
So, James, I found lots of quotes in your book. I just made this great big long list of all these quotes that I just loved. And so I thought I'd just pull one out and we can talk.
Great.
So, love has a power to dismantle even the biggest barriers. And I just love that because what I like to finish the show with that: love be the loudest voice. So, but how do we get into that space so that we go and meeting people who are a bit different to us, who have different opinions? How do we start those conversations?
Good question, Andrea. Well, it begins like we begin with this book. It begins with me realizing that I don't know everything. There's no way any of us could know everything that we need to know to move forward in love. But we have to make a commitment to love itself, not to being right, not to having the best opinion or supporting the right people or whatever it may be. That there's something that's much more important. And that is what, and the only thing that is going to overcome all of these obstacles that are before us. We see polarization today at a level that maybe we never have before, where people are throwing each other out of their hearts, out of their families, out of their homes. When I was on this journey that I was talking about, when I was writing the book, I stopped in Minnesota to visit my own father. Now, my father is very different than me. His opinions are the opposite. He supports people that I do not support. And he is really, in his mind, right about all of it. And I realized I could get into a battle with him if I want. I could try to convince him that he's not as right as he think he is, or I could soften the entire atmosphere and simply love him where he's at. Don't try and change. Don't try and outdo, but simply to love one another. And this is always the first step. It's the last part of our I don't know, maybe I love you steps, but it really is the one that ties it all together. If we don't have this foundation of love, which does overcome every barrier, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to be spinning our tires. And we've been spinning our tires long enough. This is such an important time for us to come together, to work together, even though we may have different opinions and different perspectives. This is the time for us to realize that there's really only one perspective in that counts, and that's our compassion and love.
So yeah, so this compassion is just such an important part of who we are. If we can tap into that and work with that, then there's so much that we can do to change the way the world operates, the way that we work. And it's just such a simple thing. Like, so that's why inviting someone for a chocolate and coffee break and then incorporating says what you're talking about just fits together perfectly.
There's something that I'm very familiar with in the Israeli-Arab discussion that's very similar to your coffee and chocolate. They call it the sulha, and in this case, it's tea. Uh,
Mhm.
One side or the other is invited to come and share tea uh, in the tent of what they might think of as their adversary. Now, when someone invites you to sulha, to share tea, you are required to accept that invitation for at least one cup. You come together into the tent of the supposed adversary and you have one cup. If you decide to stay and have two cups, then a real dialogue begins. And if everything continues to go well and the third cup of tea is served, magic happens. I think it's the same with what you're doing here with this show and just this idea of coffee and chocolate. Let's sit down together. Let's listen to one another. Let's not just be preparing in my mind my next response to whatever you're going to say. That's not listening. Listening means to stay open, to let go of my own agenda, to consider the possibility that there's something that you're going to share with me that is going to change the way I look at things. So it all begins by realizing this pandemic of being right, that it's so prevalent today. It is the thing that's tearing us apart. And that I'm the one, it's not you, I'm the one that has to take that first step to let go of my need to be right, to say, I don't know. Maybe there's something you can teach me here, but I know that I love you.
So another quote from your book, like I said, I can quote this book. I'll be quoting this book forever. When we choose love over fear, we begin dismantling the walls that divide us brick by brick, allowing us to see the other as worthy of value and even trust. So I thought that was a really good one because this fear, we get stuck in this fear of the unknown, of what somebody else is or what they perceive to be, that we're not willing to sit and just have this conversation and to choose love. And I remember that's one thing that always stayed from me from when I time from studying with you is to go into the world with love and just to send out love to people as we go through a crowd of people. And so this overcoming fear is such an important part of this. Now, how do you see any other way of us working with this?
Well, I believe that there ultimately are only two emotions, love and fear. And we're constantly making a choice between the two. And I've been a student of a book called A Course in Miracles for many years. And A Course in Miracles would say that everything we do is either an act of love or an act of fear. And that if someone's choosing fear, my only responsibility is not to try and change them, but to choose love myself. And in doing so, the frequency begins to change in every relationship. And that's why, and I try to make this very clear in the book, that it's about me making the choice, not me saying, I read this book and I think you should practice this. No, it's not that at all. It's me practicing it. And the moment I choose to express love, the moment I choose love over fear, something in me begins to relax. I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to change the other person, their opinion, their life. I just need to hold that space of love. And when I do that, it may sound airy-fairy at first because so many of us are convinced that we need to convince. We think that we need to change people, and we don't. We just need to love one another. And when we do that, when I love someone in spite of their different opinion, in spite of the things that they believe that maybe I don't believe, when like this is the experience that I had with my father. My father, he really wanted to get in there and argue, and I told him, "I'm not going to entertain on that level. I'm just going to remember that you're my father. And even though we may not agree with each other on some of these issues, even though we're not voting for the same person, I love you. And that's the only thing that matters." So I think he may have been able to relax into that a bit more because ultimately he gave up trying to argue and we just settled into a father-son relationship.
Fabulous. So while I refill my cuppa, let's take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. And yes, stick around during the break, and it's a chance to hear from those who make this show possible. Every click, every view, every sponsor you support helps keep the conversation alive. See you in a minute.
Hello, I'm Annie Burke, Cosmic Heart Intuitive. I'm the animal-human relationship enricher. I help animal parents connect with their animals, living or in spirit, through telepathic conversations. And you too can learn how to connect with your animal telepathically with my mentorship program. It's just amazing what you can learn from your animals about their past lives, their current life, and their future lives. It will change your life, it will change their life.
You've ticked the boxes: career, commitments, calendar that's more packed than your pantry, but something's still missing. In Compassionate Purpose, Andrea Putting invites you to stop chasing busy and start living with intention. This book is about real fulfillment through small acts of compassion, purpose-driven service, and meaning that last. No pressure, no perfection, just purpose with heart. Compassionate Purpose, Discovering a Life of Fulfillment. Search for Andrea Putting on Amazon. Jimmy, I'd love you to share with us a bit about being the peace troubadour, because I know you've done some pretty amazing work with that, and I am in awe of some of the things that you have done. So please share with us about being the peace troubadour.
Well, I consider being the peace troubadour the core of who I am and what I'm most passionate about. For many years, I've traveled around the world, often to countries at war or in conflict, performing a concert of peace prayers from all the different traditions of the world. And I've been invited by the leaders of countries like Iraq and Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Israel, to be in those countries performing this concert at times when maybe I shouldn't have been there, but I knew I had to be there because this message of love is so important today. And even though that's changed a lot for me over the years, because I started doing that, goodness, 30 years ago this year. It was 30 years ago that I went to Bosnia, right around this time, and Croatia during the Balkan War, and wrote my first book based on that experience called Emissary of Light. And since then, I've just have loved so much the music. And as you know, I've written many books, but for me, the music and being the peace troubadour has been really the core of who I feel I am and my unique voice in the world.
So you've got your guitar sitting there. So can we just hear a little bit of something that you've written
Oh,
that you
sure.
like to play?
Well, I was just playing this song right before we started, and I did an album a number of years ago based on quotes from both Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. And my favorite quote from Gandhi was, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." I think that's really appropriate in this discussion about, I don't know, maybe I love you, that we have to be this, we have to live this. So this is my song based on Gandhi's quote. Be the change, be the change that you want to see. Be the change, be the change that you want to see this world. I have come to you as a friend, as one who understands, for something to move or grow or change it all. Hold out your hand, just hold out your hand and be the change. A little sound.
Thank you. It's beautiful. I love listening to you playing and singing. So I do have another one of your quotes. Like I said, I can quote this book. I love this book. We're here to help manifest a world where love overcomes fear and where people honor one another in spite of their differences. It's only when everyone feels valued that we can create a new world. So what's the new world that you want to create with this, with your work and with specifically this book?
I like that idea that it's only when people feel valued, when we value everyone, despite their opinions or their positions, who they voted for. You know, I have a little credo that I think about a lot and that I often share. It says, I don't care who you voted for. Come and walk with me. I don't care what position you hold, left or right, liberal or conservative. Come and serve with me. The only thing that is important now is love, loving one another. So come and love with me. And I think that if we can do that, then all of those other things begin to dissolve. They become less important because we've tapped in to the most important key, that which will bring us together rather than splitting us apart. And this is a time more than any other, perhaps, that we need to come together. If we're going to create this new world, this society based on love, it's not going to happen by being pulled further apart. You know, I think of a rubber band sometime, that the tension of a rubber band is greatest right before it snaps. And I can feel that tension growing to the point that the whole thought system is not going to be able to maintain itself. It's going to snap in a good way and maybe bring us back together. So I believe in the power of love. I believe in the power of I don't know, maybe, I love you. And I believe that we are on the brink of a new renaissance where if enough of us can become depolarizing agents, which is, by the way, my main goal is to have an army of depolarizing agents. And if people want more information on that, they can go to my website, which is simply de-polarize.com. And you can sign up to get training to be a depolarizing agent in your community.
That's fabulous. I'm going to do that myself. And I'd love people to also sign up and learn how to invite people to chocolate and coffee break because
Amen.
they
That's a good
just
way to
go
begin.
together like chocolate
Indeed.
and coffee. So I think one of the problems that I see that depolarizes us, it could well be social media. And we learn very quickly that, hey, if we don't like somebody, we don't like their opinion, let's just block them. We don't need to watch them. We don't need to listen to them. We'll just block them. So I think that's kind of holding us back in the world and stopping us from connecting as much as we would like to.
I believe that all of these new technologies are both blessings and very challenging, and social media is certainly one of them. The
Yes.
opportunity to share and to be able to see what everyone else is doing or even what they're thinking is great. But when it becomes too easy to unlike or to reject someone just with a click of a button, you know, that's not what I would do if you were standing right in front of me. But on social media, it's easy to do, and also to just fall into the tribe of the people who agree with us and all the algorithms that keep giving us what we already believe. Same with AI. AI is a beautiful, wonderful tool if we use it in the proper way.
Yeah.
But we human beings like to test things, and in testing them, we sometimes learn the boundaries, and we learn how they can be used for the opposite of that love that we've been talking about. So Let's use it all. Let's all become depolarizing agents and share this message around the world.
Thank you, James, for joining me today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you to everyone for joining us on Chocolate and Coffee Break, a compassionate proposition. And before you go, here's a challenge for you. Share a chocolate and coffee cuppa with someone different from you, someone whose story, cultural perspective you never fully heard. Take a photo and put it on our Facebook group. And please, if this episode stirred anything in you, comment and subscribe. And every action helps you compassion just a little further. Until next time, love be the loudest voice.